Okay, welcome back to the boat shop. After my last video or two, I've been surprised a couple of you have asked about a few various things. One of them is strut mounting. We talked a little bit about hard spotting, some of the mounts, motor mounts, etc. But I've had some questions about how we're going to mount the stuffing tube in the hull. In my setup, I have, as you can see, the boat's upside down, motor is in. I've finished that mount arrangement. I've got the angle that I want. The strut, I have it set at about the depth and angle I think I want to use. We can talk about that. Message me down below if you have questions about how we're going to mount that and what type of angle and position and all that to use on the strut mount. Anyway, today we're going to talk about mounting the stuffing tube. I use a Teflon lined stuffing tube that I get from Rattlesnake RC. If you don't know Bill Brandt, check him out. Maybe I'll put a link in down below too, and you can check that out. He's got everything you need, everything. But anyway, I use a flex cable setup. I like a square drive on the front where it goes into my motor. There's a 1/4-inch cable. So this slips in place. I'll cut it where I need it and solder a ferrule on that'll mount on my shaft. But meanwhile, I mount this tube into the hull. And back in the old days, when I first got my first boat, I did what everybody did, which is I stuck it through a hole here and I put a whole ton of silicone on there. And the theory was that it'll allow for some shock and movement and flex, etc. It really looked awful and was a nightmare when you want to replace the tube, or if you need to make changes, or you wrap a cable all up and you damage it, which I did, by the way. Don't forget to lube your cable. Anyway, so we have a different way to mount this thing. What we're going to do is get another piece of tubing that the stuffing tube will sleeve into. In my case, this is a piece of 3/8 tubing. Get it at any hobby store, and this baby will slide right in. So we're epoxy this guy into the hull. We'll make a small hole, and when we install the stuffing tube, we'll put a little bit of solder in that hole. We'll solder this tube to this tube, and she'll stay. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. Later on, I get lazy. I don't lube my cable. I don't replace my cable. It winds all up. It gets bound up in here. This thing gets all bent to heck. Put a little heat on it, melt the solder, slide this baby out, make a new one, slide it back in. Piece of cake. So now the big question is, okay, we've got this set up. We think we're pretty close. In fact, I can put this guy in place, stick it in here, and with any luck whatsoever, okay, I've slid in. I'm pretty well lined up. I think, by golly, I got it. So epoxy it in, right? Well, wait a second. Yeah, it's close, but is it perfect? Came up with a solution for that. Piece of 1/4-inch aluminum. Threw it in the lathe, cut this end down to about 200 thousandths so it'll fit into the collet on the motor. And you say, why doesn't the 1/4-inch fit? I'm using a 1/4-inch cable. No, yeah, the cable's 1/4-inch, but the end is this ground down or pressed? I don't know. Some of you guys probably know the answer to that. Tell me how they do this. I'd love to be able to do this myself. I don't know if that's pressed with unbelievable pressure. Probably, which I can't do. Anyway, if you'll measure this, you'll find out it's about 200 thousandths. So I cut this down. So this is now a beautiful little slip fit into the collet. Okay, I'm in the motor, ready to go. I say that's pretty good. Now, I wrap a little hockey tape around here so it'll slip really nicely into my 3/8 tube. And now I'm going to put it in. And even in so doing, I can feel, I got a little bit of tension on each end of my slot. It's not a perfect alignment yet. So what we'll do, oh, don't worry, I'll shut the video off, is we're going to recut this a little bit longer. We're going to do this a little bit at a time because I want a nice fit, but we're going to keep going until I get just a beautiful slip fit with no tension on the wood. When I get close, I mean, I work this baby by hand, right? You can't see it in the video probably, but it kind of carves the wood out real nicely. So I get a real nice fit here and plenty of room, plenty of epoxy bond. Why? Because I'm gonna get lazy, I'm gonna forget to lube the cable, I'm gonna wind it up, I'm gonna tear it up, and we want this strong, right? So I'm gonna carve that out, we'll come back and see how we do. Okay, we're back. Elongated the ends a little bit. We've gone back in and we've filed our little angles in here. We'll slide this back. I'll put this right up against the collet, and if all went well, I'll get a real nice slip fit here and I won't feel tension on the tube. Okay. I have the benefit of having a cutout here. I'm going to put a little drop floor in because you can see the motor's a little bit too low, so that'll allow me to get the cable on and off of here. Anyhow, she goes right in. No tension on the tube as it's just laying there. So right now I have a really nice straight alignment with my crankshaft and we're good to go. So are we done? I don't know. Are we lined up good here? Some prop shaft. Get a nice long piece. Get this from Bill, Rattlesnake RC. I already have my strut done. Like I said, I think I've got it pretty well where I want it. And we're lined right up. It's just a beautiful alignment. Ready to rock and roll. So we'll cut this back a little bit. I don't need this sleeve this long, and we'll move it away. And it'll solder in, epoxy in about like that. Okay. We're all epoxied in. Used our alignment tool to do it. We've got a little piece of, cut a little angled piece of 1/8" ply wedged up under there gently and epoxied thoroughly. In a perfect world, one of the first things we shouldn't do in a perfect world is try to do this left-handed. Okay, there's our stuffing tube installed. If all went well, we hit with really nice alignment on the collet, and let's take a look. Switching hands. And it's hanging out the back, so we're going to move it back here. And there we have it. So we'll shape and form the stuffing tube now. It'll sit back about there. You can drill your hole up here if you want. Actually, I grind a hole in the brass. Drilling, you kind of slip around. It makes a nasty little hole. Just get a little ball grinder on your Dremel. Back this guy up. Grind a hole here. So once you get it all fit, get her up there where you want it. Put a dab of solder on it and it'll hold it just fine. I put a little bridge or a little brace on the end here. Like I said, this is no place to scrimp. I'm super weight conscious, but I use a lot of epoxy under here. Make it really, really strong. And we should be good to go. I'll tell you one other thing that you got to keep in mind. Now we're going to strip all this thing apart, of course, and then you're either going to clear in here, seal it and clear it, or maybe even paint your tub. And what that's going to do is it's going to raise your motor up ever so slightly. It's not much, but I'll tell you what, you get a couple layers of clear down in here and you seal this wood. It'll pick this guy up and ruin your alignment. So actually when I put this in, you can do one of two things. I've used little nylon washers underneath here to kind of simulate the height, but it's just very simple. When I put this bridge in, I pushed it up under a little bit where it actually lifted ever so slightly. And if I could get this in there far enough, you might see that tube comes up just a little bit high. And there's two reasons for that. Again, the motor's going to come up naturally anyway when you put your sealant and your clear or whatever in here, but also it's hard to move the motor down. If I miss, where it's a little bit low, it's hard to move the motor down. I got to take the motor mounts apart and grind on them and lower it down. It's easy to raise it up. I can very easily shim it just ever so slightly if I need to make the alignment flawless. So if you're going to err just a little bit high on your stuffing tube on the motor end. Okay, all right. I think that's all I got for you. We're gonna have a really nice little shaft log arrangement going there, and we'll be ready to run. All right, happy building. Thanks for checking in. Click like down below if you liked it. That'll move it along to more people, and let's help as many guys as we can here. Also, feel free to subscribe. And I can see Jackson's eager to get back to work, so I got to go. All right, thanks for watching.